Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Pegasus Sports Network's first ever Wednesday night sports show. I'm Mike Montgomery, along with the sports editor for the Oldham Era, Brad Stevens. Glad you're here with us tonight. This is our first ever Wednesday night sports show, and as you can tell, we've got the exciting studio here. We haven't quite gotten that ESPN look yet, but we're working on that. Glad you're here with us tonight. We're going to talk a little bit about actually, we're going to talk a lot about football, Oldham County football, South Oldham and North Oldham, but Brad, also some other sports that are underway here as the fall season gets started. That's
right. It's always an exciting time of year. Obviously, football starting Friday. That's the big draw, and that's also most of our time on. But some soccer, some volleyball, some other sports getting going. So it's definitely a good time of year here in Oldham County.
Want to get started by thanking a few people here, and certainly want to remind you that if you're interested in knowing what next game is up, you can always check in the Oldham Era, because you'll always be able to see the next game broadcast, which game is going to be broadcast on the Oldham in the Oldham Era. But also, if you look around town, these little pocket schedules, which I'm holding up here, we've got these all around the county. Marathon Station in Buckner, at the Circle K's in Centerfield and Crestwood and LaGrange, the Valero Station there in Ballardsville. Just dropped them off at the Save a Step this evening in Pee Wee Valley. Lots of different places. Dizzy Dave's East in LaGrange. So a lot of different places you can pick them up at the cash register. Advanced Auto Parts in both LaGrange and Crestwood. Really want to thank these folks for having them out here, because what it has is all the games listed on the Pegasus Sports Network. And, of course, the other neat thing we really want to thank the county for this year is all of our games are also going to be broadcast on cable. Digital Channel 25. All games will be broadcast on a delayed basis. You have a Friday night game. It'll be broadcast on Saturdays at 7, and then from Sundays through Fridays nightly at 10 o'clock. So if you miss the game at www.pegasussportsky.com, always can catch it on cable. Let's take a look at some of these teams. Let's jump right into it. We've got just an hour here and a lot to talk about.
Right.
And obviously one of the biggest news this year is in Buckner, where Oldham County will start the 2014 season with a brand new coach, Mike Schatzer, and Colonel fans already hoping he's bringing some of that Alabama football luck with him.
Absolutely, yeah. I think it's an exciting time with that program. Obviously, program's been down over the last few years, and change was made, and they took their time, looking for the right coach. I think it took him between 2 and 3 months to finally make that hire. But everyone out there seems really confident. You talk to players, you talk to parents, you talk to fans. There's a lot of enthusiasm with Coach Schatzer. He's an enthusiastic guy. I'm sure a lot of listeners out there have met him and heard him talk. He's passionate about football. Passionate about the academic side of things too. He's a history teacher there. I know he's my conversation with him, he's been passionate about that. Just definitely a lot of enthusiasm around that program, and especially drawing some numbers out there. It seems like they're going in the right direction.
Well, the numbers are amazing. I mean, last year Oldham County had less than 50 players on the roster, and this is a 6A school. That's the largest classification in Kentucky high school football. I mean, let's face it, I think they had 47 when the year ended. 47 isn't big in 2A. So this is a situation. They just did not have the bodies out there. Tremendous difference. As of Sunday, Mike, during our preseason show, said he's got 85 on the roster now.
Yeah, well, and OC's kind of at a little bit of a disadvantage in 6A because they're on the smaller end of the 6A spectrum. There are a lot bigger schools in the state that compete in 6A, and so they're always going to have to, kind of find some kids out of the hallways and come out and play football. And football is just such a it's a sport that can really wear you down. Can a lot of attrition. You start getting some injuries going and stuff like that, and you can really be in trouble. And so that's one of the most important things about really getting a program going is building some depth, and that's really what they've been trying to do. My conversations with the coach, he's been talking about how he got kids. Some of the kids that were on the team, he told them, hey, you're out here, you're excited about this. Now your job is to go recruit some of your buddies, that are maybe playing other sports, maybe they're not, maybe they have played football in the past and quit because of whatever issue there was. Tell them to come back out. Tell them there's kind of a new attitude in town. Come out and try football. And telling you what, I mean, going out there, there's big numbers. I think you said 80, 85. I mean, it's an incredible turnaround for 1 year, and hopefully for them it'll show once they get on the field.
interesting approach to the way the Oldham County coaching staff is handling things this year. First off, it's a big coaching staff, 9 coaches coaching in Buckner, and that's a healthy number out there. There are a few returnees. Tom Hawkins, who's been there for a number of years. Coach Young is back again. For those of you who remember him, he's been there for a long time, and he'll be the defensive coordinator. But what is interesting is the way that they're coaching the kids. At most schools, you have a JV coaching staff. You have a freshman coaching staff. At Oldham County right now, doesn't matter which team you're on, you're coached by the varsity coaches.
Yeah, it's really interesting. It's good philosophy, though, because even if you have the same system, a lot of times there can be a disconnect between the freshman coaches and the varsity coaches. Whenever you're separated, and obviously that can lead to a little bit of kind of a maybe hard to adjust to that next level when you move up from the freshman team onto varsity. By keeping everyone together, I think they're making more continuity. It's everyone's first year in the system. It's not going to be, the varsity guys' first year, then the freshmen will have their first year next year. A lot of continuity going on, and that happens when you have the same coaches and you're working with. And obviously that's a good thing for really building a program.
Well, you don't have any arguments about scheme. That's for sure.
Exactly.
I tell you, Coach Schatzer, it's a challenge for head coaches in all sports to understand that it's more than just the X's and O's. It's psychology as well. Keep in mind, Brad, in this Oldham County team, there's no player on this team who has been in school and seen Oldham County have a winning record. The last Colonel team with a winning record was 2010, won 7 games that year. Oldham County was on a bit of a roll at that time, had several pretty good squads in a row. Now is on the opposite. The Colonels have won just 9 games in the last 3 years. Part of the big challenge for Mike, I think, is making sure that when the first thing goes wrong in a game, this team doesn't revert to bad habits.
Yeah, you hear it talked about sometimes, and it sounds kind of silly, but, you have to know how to win. A lot of times you'll see a team, maybe they're playing above their heads a little bit. They get up by a couple touchdowns in the second half, and then they haven't been in that situation before, don't really know how to handle that sort of kind of reverse adversity, I guess, and can fall down. And so that's a big thing for a coaching staff is to show a team, this is how you go about things, from simply, from getting to practice on time every day to putting all the balls away after practice, running all your condition drills, lifting all your weights, doing those little things to kind of build that psychology of winning program from the ground up, and that's really some of the little things are what it takes to build that winning attitude.
Oldham County this year, like we said, a lot of numbers, and so far, Brad, where that's really seeming to pay dividends is on the line. Both lines with a number of players, as many as 15, 16, 17 players. Oldham County thinks that they can go pretty deep in the trenches this year, and that has to bode well for things.
Absolutely, yeah. That's one of the places where that injury adversity can really wear you down. It's on the line, because if you have a thin line, you have a couple of guys get hurt, then that can really expose a lot of weaknesses. It doesn't really matter how good your running backs are, how good your quarterback is, if they don't have room to run or time to throw. And on the defensive line too, you can have great linebackers or great secondary, but if on the running plays, if the other team's offensive linemen are getting 5 yards down the field, then it's not really going to do a whole lot of good. So building that depth on the lines, building guys up front, and really getting some bodies up there. That's what it takes to build a program. You talk about building from the inside out. Kind of building that depth, and then that allows some of the skill position guys, some of the the guys will be holding the ball, or some of the guys on defense will be making a lot of the plays. That's what allows them to go out and do their thing.
Last year, Oldham County suffered from a couple of problems. One was they weren't big enough. 2, they weren't fast enough. So they weren't able to overpower teams, nor were they able to run away from teams. And then maybe most tellingly, just struggled at quarterback, where the play ended up being a revolving door. 3 different quarterbacks saw significant time last year, none of them able to really claim the job and become the settled starter. This year, Mike Schatzer's decided to name it early. His starting quarterback is James Harding. He's going with him. He's all in with this young man. And that's got to help James, I think, with the confidence level. Last year, that was a definite issue with him. He's got the tools. This kid has what some of the coaches are saying is a D1 arm.
He has a really good arm. Throws a beautiful deep ball, good spiral. I think the problem last year at the quarterback position for Oldham County is you had 3 quarterbacks, and if one of them made a mistake, it was kind of okay. Let's see what the next guy can do, and you're just kind of shuffling from the top of the deck. It seems like. I know Coach Schatzer kind of lives by the mantra that if you have 2 quarterbacks, you don't have any. And last year, Oldham County had 3 quarterbacks, and they went to a 9. So I think by going with one, you're taking kind of the opposite approach, and I think that's a good thing. Talking to James, talking to some of the receivers out there, it builds up the confidence in James, and that in turn makes him more confident in making his throws, makes the receivers more confident that the balls will be there, that they have a quarterback they trust, and when the leader of your team is feeling good and is in a good place mentally, then that's typically a good sign for the way the team's going to go.
On the ground, a new name for Oldham County fans to get to know, Jason Henry will be the number 1 running back, and the coaches are really excited about this young man.
They are. Jason seems like an athletic kid. Seems like a good, kind of between the tackles runner, but also has some speed to get outside and do some things. Coach Schatzer's offense, he wants to go, he wants to base it around the run, and then also do a lot of play action off that, kind of, sort of what you may see kind of a pro style, maybe a Stanford or something like that would probably be kind of comparable. Maybe obviously less formational shifts and things, but that kind of philosophy. So it starts with Jason. If Jason can get 20, 25 touches a game and average 5 or 6 yards a carry, even 4 yards a carry. I mean, you talk about really setting the offense up in good position, and then letting James do some things in the play action game. They could they have a potential to get some big things going.
Oldham County definitely going to be looking to run. Mike Schatzer making the definite commitment to the running game. Not a big surprise. He spent his last 4 years coaching in Alabama. They do a little bit of running down there in the SEC, and that's what he's going to try to duplicate here. We'll be looking at a couple of backs in the backfield, 2 tight end sets, and generally only 1 wide out in the Oldham County offense. But this is a team committed to the run. Now, defensively, a little bit different. We're going to see 4 down linemen, again, very deep on the defensive line. And one young man who's already really asserted himself defensively is one of the linebackers, Brian Barmangi, a guy who ended last year playing very well on a team that was struggling late. He was one of the big bright spots. They say he has been an absolute beast in practice.
Well, when you're building a program, and obviously you want to look at your young talent, but it's good to have a senior, 4 or 5 senior leaders that can really pull those sophomores and juniors up and bridge the gap almost. And Brian's the perfect guy to do that. I mean, you talk about a middle linebacker, range, he can make plays, good against the run, a good team leader. Seems like a kind of a good kid that the rest of the defense rallies around. I mean, that's
we lost our banner.
How about that? First show for us.
First show. All the glitches happened in that first show.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, Brian, obviously a good talent, and definitely be a good piece for the Oldham County defense this year.
They got the black shirts. If you haven't heard about the black shirts, that's a big thing in the Oldham County defense this year. Tell them about the black shirts.
Yeah, the black shirts that goes to whenever you've asserted yourself as a defensive starter, you earn a black shirt. Now, I was out there last Wednesday, so I guess a week from tonight, and they had 6 of them out. They had, I think Brian had one. Carson Axtell just got one when I was out there, a cornerback, and I think they had a few different linebackers and linemen that had them. So it's a big point of pride, something they really compete for. It's a cool tradition to start. I mean, whenever you can win something tangible. I remember when I played high school football, the best player, or the best defensive player on our team, wore the black shirt that next week in practice, and that was always kind of a thing to shoot for. And they're doing the same thing, but to earn the start. I think that's cool, and it seems like something the kids are all really excited about.
Yeah, and it's the old Nebraska. For those of you who remember back, that's the old Nebraska policy. And if you get the black shirt, you're a starter. And the coaches are very quick to point out that just because you have the black shirt today doesn't mean you can't lose it today. So it's developed some competition among the kids. Now, competition, we talk about a program. and maybe we should go back a little bit here to the off season. During the summer, Oldham County has been working to compete in other ways, and one of the things that they've kind of, I don't want to say brought back because it hasn't been completely gone, but they've really emphasized it during the offseason, has been the weights, and they're starting to see some tangible benefits.
Yeah, that's that's where our program is built, is in the weight room. I mean, whenever we used to have my old coaches preach this, championships, they aren't won at Papa John's Stadium in December. They're won in the weight room in January, February. Kind of during those summer months too, when the rest of your friends maybe at the pool or something like that. And it seems like some of those senior leaders, the guys like Brian and James are the ones that are encouraging their younger teammates to get there and lift weights. And going out there and seeing, I mean, the guys just look bigger this year, bigger and stronger, and that's only going to mean good things, when they're going up against some of those teams in 6A, because that some of those 6A teams they're facing are and even South and North, their county rivals. I mean, they're gonna be the same level, and so it is important for OC to to kind of get their weight up literally and get the weight room and try to build something there.
Well, still not strong enough, according to Mike Schatzer, but getting there. Now let's talk about the schedule. Oldham County in 6A. This is the last year for the Colonels in 6A. They're going to flip back down to 5A next year. When you're about the size of Oldham County, you tend to move from the one class to the other, the largest to the next to largest, because they're either the smallest 6A school or they're one of the larger 5A schools. So they're going to be moving back to 5A next year, but still one more year in 6A. And let's take a look at the schedule. Starts off this Friday night, at home against Iroquois, a game that'll be right here on Pegasus Sports. We'll go on the air at 7 o'clock, kickoff at 7:30. Got to be a feel-good game, I got to think, Brad. I mean, you need to beat Iroquois.
Absolutely, and that's a team, I mean, Oldham County, they went 2-9 last year, and they beat Iroquois 33-0 in that opener on the road. I mean, obviously nothing against Iroquois, if we have any Iroquois fans out there watching, but, I mean, it's not one of the stronger programs in Louisville. It's a game that, Oldham County needs to win, needs to get off a good start, and, pretty confident they can, and they can start 1-0.
1-0, but then things get dramatically tougher. North Oldham in week 2 in Goshen. Oldham County has just recently started playing North Oldham, but hasn't yet come away with a victory against the Mustangs.
Yeah, that's a tough game. You know that the North kids are fired up to play that because OC being the 6A school in town, the North kids want to show that just because you're bigger doesn't mean you're better, and it's especially with the offense North runs, that can be a tough matchup too. So definitely an interesting game this year.
Real contrast to the following week.
Absolutely.
North Oldham will run the ball. We know that. They will pass the ball more this year, but it's primarily a running team. But next week after that, Oldham County will face a top 10 ranked team in Franklin County, and there won't be a lot of running when Franklin's on the field. Yeah,
Franklin County can put the ball in the air, and they can do it pretty effectively too. It'll be a good test for some of those black shirts in the defensive backfield on the defensive line to try to get some kind of pass rush, but that'll be a tough one for the Colonels.
Colonels, after those 2 road games, come back home to play South Oldham on September the 12th. Always a tough game. South Oldham favored to win their district. We'll talk more about the Dragons in a moment, but that's been a really tough game for Oldham County the last couple of years. So, Oldham County will go into those 3 games probably as the underdog before coming back home on September the 19th against North Bullitt, the Eagles of North Bullitt. And then they'll kind of continue their tour of Bullitt with another top 10 team. September the 26th, the Bullitt East Chargers come to Buckner's Belfield.
Yeah, that's another tough one right there. Obviously North Bullitt is a very winnable game. It's Oldham County won 33-0 last year in the rain down there, but Bullitt East will be a tough test. I think by that point in the season, everyone should be adjusted to the new coaching staff. Should we know what they're doing offensively and defensively? So maybe by then they can be in a position to pull that kind of upset. But definitely would be an upset if they were to win that game.
By then we should know what kind of team Oldham County is too, and it's the Colonels hopefully will be settled down, because that brings us to the district. unusual situation in the district this year. 3 of the 4 coaches are new. Mike Schatzer at Oldham County, as well as the coaches at Eastern and Fern Creek. Oldham will play on the road against Fern Creek and Eastern in the first 2 games before coming back home on October the 24th to face the Ballard Bruins. Ballard, the favorite in the district this year, coached by former Oldham County coach Mike Jackson.
Yeah, you look at the district. I mean, this is an opportunity for Oldham County. I know we talk about them being 6A, but they're playing in not one of the strongest 6A districts. I mean, Eastern and Fern Creek, they're not slouches, but I mean those are games that, especially Fern Creek last year, Oldham County really had a chance to win, and kind of some turnovers cost them. But winnable games, and if you just win one game in the district, I mean that's such an improvement from last year, and that's really kind of a feel good story for them going into the end of the season.
Well, I think Fern Creek and Eastern, Brad, and tell me what you think on this, but I think those are the deciding games as to whether Oldham can have a winning season this year. Those, as you said, are winnable games, and I think you win those 2, and suddenly you're maybe 6 wins, maybe 7 if you're playing that well at that point. Lose those games, and this might be a 4-win season.
Well, you win those 2 games, and you have a home playoff game, which would be incredible, for Coach Schatzer's first year. So there's a lot of incentive around those games. Yeah, like you said, if you lose those and then you wrap up district with Ballard, I mean that's going to be a really tough game, and then you're looking at maybe needing to beat Jeffersontown in the finale to get to 4 or 5 wins. So those Fern Creek and Eastern games, they'll be circled on the players and coaches' calendar, I'm sure.
All right, Oldham County 2-9 last year, looking for a chance to bounce back. They've, as we said, just averaged 3 wins a season the last 3 years. Looking for a bounce back year with Mike Schatzer at the helm here. It's going to be an exciting year, and it's good to see a lot of the Colonels back. We're going to take a quick break here. When we come back, we'll talk about the South Oldham Dragons. They're favorites in their district in the preseason, and we'll talk about Jamie Reed and South Oldham right after this. This is the Wednesday Night Sports Show on the Pegasus Sports Network.
A proud sponsor of the Pegasus Sports Network is Mountjoy Chilton Medley Certified Public Accountants, the largest locally based accounting firm in Kentucky and southern Indiana, offering a full range of accounting, audit, tax planning, and advisory services for businesses and individuals. Employing nearly 120 CPAs, Mountjoy Chilton Medley provides highly specialized services that can help you achieve your personal and business goals. For a complete list of services and more, on the web at mcpa.com. Mountjoy Chilton and Medley, 502-749-1900.
We're back at the Wednesday Night Sports Show. Mike Montgomery along with Brad Stevens of the Oldham Mayor. Glad to have you here with us on this Wednesday night as we do our inaugural sports show. Now, as I was telling Brad here during the break, we're going to be much more sophisticated next week. We're going to have dancing. No, I'm sorry.
I think our goal for the next week is to try to make the banner stay up for at least the entire first segment, maybe the entire show. If we get lucky.
Yeah, we're going to build on this show as the season goes on. There will be we may have some interviews. We're hoping to have a little more video of some action from some games to show you and to go back over. We're just going to build this as we go and see where it goes. Right now, it's going to go to South Oldham, Crestwood. Jamie Reed, in his 5th year at South Oldham High School, has never had a losing season. Has come in, produced right away with the Dragons, and now is riding 2 consecutive 8-4 seasons. Last year, South Oldham, for the first time, the undisputed district champion, got to play a first-round game at home. It's hard to believe, Jamie, Brad, South Oldham's been around since 1989. Last year was the first year they got to host a playoff football game.
Yeah, wild. I mean, the success that Coach Reed has had there, I mean, obviously I haven't been here very long, but looking at the records over the 90s and a lot of the 2000s, I mean, there was years of success, but they couldn't really sustain it for a period of time. And all the credit to Jamie. I mean, to do this for 4 years, winning record every year, and really last year, I mean, winning the district outright for the first time. And they don't play an easy district either. I mean, they played Connor, which, I mean, if you know anything about Connor last year, that was Drew Barker, quarterback. That was down at the University of Kentucky. They played Scott, who had a great year. It was a dangerous team, and they went up there to Scott and beat them. They beat Cooper, who was the defending state runner-up in 5A. So really an impressive year for South, and really an impressive thing that Jamie's built there.
Yeah, it's been impressive, and they've been a little bit better just about every year. So it's going to be kind of hard to improve on 8-4. But in the AP coach, or not the AP, it was the Courier Journal coaches poll that just came out this morning. The coaches in the district voting the Dragons #1 to repeat as district champions.
Yeah, and I'm sure that if I know Coach Reed, he will talk that down from his players pretty quick. He'll take them back to earth on that. Won't let them get too caught up in the hype. But definitely if you're South, there's a lot to like coming back. I mean, obviously they lost some key players, but the Dragons should bring plenty back.
Last year before the season, Coach Reed told me that he really wasn't sure about the team, wasn't sure how good they would be. And let's face it, he lost some guys like Jack Sherry, who's now playing at Morehead State. He lost a talented wide receiver in Kyle Young, who wanted to concentrate on basketball. So he had some key losses. Who would have thought that they would be, I don't want to say easily, but I guess that's what I'm tempted to say, so well replaced. Chase Lightfoot coming in at quarterback had a great season, threw for over 1,700 yards and 23 touchdowns, only 6 picks. And how about Davis Culbertson, who I think just kind of came out of nowhere, almost 1,000 yards as a receiver.
You could tell that Davis and Chase have been playing football together for a long time, which I think they grew up playing together. It seemed like just that quarterback wide receiver connection they had. I mean, especially on the deep balls, which is so tough to do in high school football for a quarterback to to be able to get the timing down those throws. I mean, it was crisp. Davis line out wide, and a lot of times just streaking down the field or mixing in some kind of double move, and Chase is able to find him. And for a team that's really built itself around the running game as much as South Oldham has, to have that weapon last year in the passing game, I mean that really opened up the whole offense for Coach Reed, and I know that was a big part of their success.
Well, this year you've got to replace them again because Lightfoot's gone, Culbertson's gone. New names, new faces. Michael McGee moves to the quarterback spot. Let's talk about him first. Jamie Reed says, who loves the option. Jamie loves the option. Has not really been able to run the option at South the way he would like, but says Michael might be the best option quarterback he's had in Crestwood.
Well, you look at Michael. He's 6'4". He's kind of a wiry built guy. I mean, not real big, but his footwork, if you watch him, he has kind of fluid footwork in the pocket. He can move outside the pocket when he's passing, and when you're a quarterback running the option, a lot of times it's not so much whatever kind of jukes and stiff arms and stuff you can have running the ball. It's the little steps you make and the timing down your pitches and everything. And I think that's what's impressive about Michael is that he has that ability, even as a bigger quarterback, to be nimble enough to make some of those plays in the option game and get the ball into the hands of some of those talented running backs they have.
Before we talk about those running backs, so I'm going to talk about the guy who's got to fill the shoes of Davis Culbertson.
Right.
And very interested to see who was going to step up. Coach was very complimentary about Ethan Reinert, and I had not really seen him do a whole lot, but we watched the scrimmage the other day against Shelby County last Friday, and Ethan Reinert was a human pinball. Beautiful job of running routes, showed some good hands, but showed even more impressively, he's a really hard guy to tackle.
He is. He's a hard guy to bring down. You look at him; he's not the biggest guy in the world, but I mean, neither was Davis last year too. I mean, there's kind of guys that they have good hands and they kind of have good football sense. They can see a couple of moves ahead, can get into open space, and can take advantage when they get there. And Ethan has good speed. We saw him on a couple of deep balls. We also saw him make some catches kind of in that intermediate range and kind of snake his way upfield, bounce off a couple of guys. So. obviously you don't need Randy Moss out there. You're looking for someone that can, that has good hands, that can make catches, that can move the chains, get first downs, and maybe break one every now and then. I think that's what they have in Ethan.
Yeah, I was really impressed. He was a pinball. He bounced off a million different defenders. Very hard to wrap up. But, as you well know from your days playing football,
that's right.
Running the routes is so important.
It is. I mean, you can be the fastest guy in the world. You can have the best hands in the world. You can the highest jumper in the world. But if you run into a space that has 3 defensive backs in there, the quarterback's not going to throw the ball there. I mean, the best thing a receiver can do is run to where there's no one there, run to open space. And, that's how you pick up first downs. That's how you turn 6-yard plays into 12 and 15-yard plays, is getting open space and running your routes, and you have to be crisp with it. And I think that's one of Ethan's best strong points. When he runs a slant, he's not just kind of, okay, 1, 2, 3, and kind of gliding along, 3 hard steps and cutting in, or runs his post, 10 hard steps, cutting towards the post. I mean, those are the kind of things you have to do as a receiver, is get open, and that's really what can open up the passing game.
Backfield, some familiar faces for South Oldham. Kevin Curriger returns at fullback this year after rushing for over 1,100 yards last year. And at one wing, Star Thompson, who was not a huge part of the running game last year. A lot of times get maybe 3 or 4 carries a game, but ended up with about 340 yards. He looks to be a big part of the running game this year. And then the other wing is going to be Adam Clark. Plagued by injuries the last couple of years. He looked pretty strong in the scrimmage. Brad, when I look at these 3 guys, it's a really good combination for Coach Reed. Curriger is very powerful between the tackles, very difficult to bring down. Star Thompson brings you that extra gear that most guys just don't have. If he gets behind the defense, he's going to score. Mm-hmm. And Adam Clark is kind of the combo guy. He's a very good pass catcher, smart ball player, always seems to be doing the right things at the right time. He had a big, long touchdown on a short catch and run.
He did, and a lot of that was kind of the same thing we talked about with Ethan. He got open, and when Michael threw him the ball, he made a nice catch, and he had enough speed to get up the field and take it to the house. And that's what you're talking about. I mean, whenever you have an option or an offense like South where you like to do some different things, you like to have, their base formation is usually 3 running backs, kind of the fullback and those wings. And when you have all 3 of those backs doing different things well, that just gives Jamie so many more options. And like you're saying, Star, his touchdown he took a toss and he took it to the sideline, and there was never any doubt. Once he took his first few steps, he was gone. And then Kevin, there were a few times the other night where it looked like he kind of ran to the line, may have only got a yard or 2, and he'd keep turning his legs and get 4 or 5. And then, of course, Adam in the passing game. You have to have a home run threat between the tackles guy and someone that can catch the ball, and South has all 3 of those. So, of course, as long as they all stay healthy, that's going to be a good combination.
Curriger, very good at falling forward. You hear coaches talk about that, falling forward. A good running back after contact, if he can keep the momentum going forward, can still pick up a yard while he's being tackled. Kevin Curriger's that kind of guy. Star Thompson impressed the dickens out of me the other night. Absolutely, I've known the young man for a long time. He's a kid that I've been fortunate to be around in baseball, and just an all-around athlete, great family. Was curious to see what kind of home run threat he would be for South this year. Well, if the scrimmage is any indication, he's going to do really well. That one run is 71-yarder, I think, for the score, and he was pulling away at the end. But I'll tell you what he maybe most impressed me with, and I didn't really know he had this talent, was his hands. Michael McGee went to him a couple times through the air. One pass, well defended on the sideline, had to go up. The ball was thrown over the outside shoulder. Star went up with really no room to operate on the sideline, comes down with an incredible catch.
Well, Coach Watkins in baseball put him in center field this year a lot on the baseball team, and obviously, if you're playing out there, you gotta be able to be athletic and make some catches, and that's kind of the the attitude he brought to football. Making some of those catches there tonight. Showed good hands, and the more weapons you have in the passing game, the easier it is for someone like Michael, a quarterback who's starting for the first time, to have an easy transition, not feel like he has to do too much.
On that line, we watched the offensive line on Friday, and obviously, I don't care how talented you are, how fast you are as a running back, if you don't have some blocking up front. And it all starts with the center. And, of course, South Oldham replacing an all-star center last year. Chris Figg graduated, and those are some pretty big shoes to fill. Hunter Hamilton moves into that role. I thought held his own pretty well on Friday night.
Yeah, I thought he did pretty well. Obviously, you're replacing a guy in Chris Figg who was all-state player. Comes from the great football pedigree, and is now playing college football at Pikeville. So you got some shoes to fill. But the one of the best jobs for a center is to be the guy, not just doing your role blocking or even snapping, but to be kind of the game manager for the line. To point out, call coverages, do things like that. More the mental aspects, and Hunter seems like he's ready for that role. Seems like he obviously is a veteran, been around the program for a while, and been around Coach Figg for a while, and Coach Reed. I mean, all the guys in that system are pretty familiar with it. So it seems like it should be a smooth transition for him going into center.
South put 28 points up on the board in just 3 quarters against Shelby County, and amazingly, and this is the funny thing, Brad, when I came away from the game, what I couldn't stop raving about was the defense, though. Shelby County did score 7 points. It was on kind of a fluke play. South Oldham had a perfect defense. The Shelby County quarterback tried to throw into double coverage, and the South players actually knocked the ball up in the air, and the offensive player caught it.
Auburn, Georgia type play right
Georgia.
there. That's
yeah,
right.
Exactly. Yeah, it's my
basically what it was right
my
there.
SEC expert here would that was exactly it.
Yeah.
But the defense really, South has been known more over the years, not just during Jamie Reed's tenure, but in previous coaches' tenure, as more of an offense-first kind of school. The defense really outshone the offense did great, but the defense really was impressive Friday.
Well, and I talked to Coach Reed a little bit about that after the game, and what he mentioned is some of those guys on the defensive line, guys like Tyler Covington and some of those other ones, they've been starting since some of them their freshman year were getting into games in varsity, and you have that kind of experience. They know what they're doing out there, and they really dominated the game. I mean, there was the first drive, the Shelby quarterback ran for about 50 yards on a keeper. Then obviously they had the long touchdown. But after that, they really couldn't get much going, especially in the running game. And once they shut down the running game, they started getting after the quarterback a little bit and passing downs. And that's they really started wreaking some havoc. That defensive line can be a special bunch for them this year.
Yeah, obviously Tyler Covington working from the defensive end spot was very impressive. But also Trey Mills, we called his name a lot. We actually did a test broadcast Friday night, and Trey Mills was a name we just kept mentioning.
Yeah, he was coming off the edge and getting a good rush around the offensive line of Shelby County. And what happened a lot was that he would get a good rush, and they get a good rush off the middle, and the Shelby quarterback would have to run towards the sideline, run one way or another, and that once you get out there, that's when some of those linebackers like Nick Bass or Connor John can go and chase the quarterback down. So that's what Trey was doing was getting a good rush, and then in the run game he was good technique, keeping things to the inside, not letting anyone around him, and kind of bottling things up there as well.
Well, Jamie Reed preaches to his team to play fast. Play fast. He doesn't want them thinking so much that they slow down their play. It's all about playing fast. And right now he's really comfortable with the way this defense is playing because all of these guys now have been playing in the Jamie Reed system. They've been playing in this formation. They know the responsibilities. There's not a drop-off when that new kid comes in because whether he's a sophomore or junior or senior or whatever, he's already been playing in this system.
Oh, one of the interesting things about the South's defense this year is they have a new coordinator. It's Coach Lightfoot, who has been on the staff for, I guess as long as Jamie has, and has been one of his right-hand men. So whenever they were making that transition to a new coordinator, they were going to someone that already knew the system. There was no having to learn new terminology, having to learn how to do this, this different, that different. And Jamie talked about that. So it was kind of a natural move to move Coy over there. And I think you can tell the guys are playing loose and relaxed the other night. And I think a lot of that goes back to their familiarity with with Coach Reed, Coach Lightfoot, and the system they have.
Couple of linebackers who really shone the other night. No big surprise. Connor John, another tremendous effort. This is kind of one of those guys, and every team has one, who's just so talented. He could play just about any position on the field. In fact, he's the backup quarterback.
Right.
But he's an all-state caliber linebacker, and Jamie Reed wants him to focus on that. He would like to keep him just playing defense this year if he can. And Connor John, I kind of thought he got a little bit of a slow start, but that may just have been because the line was scarfing up so many of the tackles. And then, but then he got active in it, and he's the kind of guy who not only is he athletically gifted, but he's a smart ball player. And you put those two things together, athletic talent and brains, and you end up with a pretty darn good linebacker.
Yeah, especially middle linebacker too. Kind of like we talked about Hunter, playing center. A lot of Connor's job is to call out the defenses. Make adjustments. Which side, audibles, things like that, and that's something Connor has experienced. He played middle linebacker last year as junior, and now as a senior, it's kind of another one of those seamless transitions for him. And obviously just an athletic kid, like you were saying. I mean, I can't think of many places, many schools in Kentucky where the backup quarterback is the starting middle linebacker, but that's the case at South. And from what I've heard, talking to people, if something were to happen to Michael, they would feel pretty comfortable putting Connor in a quarterback, which I think really says something about number one, his physical attributes, but number two, his mental attributes, and just how good of a football player he is. Not just a linebacker, not just a quarterback, but a football player.
Yeah, and don't forget, he caught a pass for a touchdown.
Right, not even talking about that, yeah.
So, he's pretty much does it all. Now, one guy I was so glad to see, he's a great kid, was having a really good season last year until an injury against North Oldham. Nick Bass back in the starting lineup at linebacker. Didn't look like he'd taken any time off at all. Was all over the field.
Well, I think a lot of times what happens is when guys are out with injury, they take a lot of time to spend some time in the weight room, kind of build their bodies up. And Nick, I mean, obviously he was a big linebacker last year. It looked like he bulked up a good amount just since then. And I mean, he was really kind of standing tall there at that outside linebacker spot. There wasn't really much getting by him. It's just good to see him back out on the field, like you said. I know a lot of times. I talked to him after the game a little bit. He said that maybe for the first couple of plays he's a little bit hesitant. But once he got those first couple of hits in, it was just kind of like riding a bike. Just kind of back out there doing what he's always done, and obviously just the way he played. I mean it's only gonna be a benefit to South to have him back there. Playing alongside Connor at outside linebacker this year.
It's been kind of interesting for me because right now these sophomores. And juniors in particular, but also a lot of the seniors. It just happens. This is a group of kids that I've seen a lot in baseball and in basketball, which I've coached. Nick was one of those kids, and I'll never forget the first time I met him. He came up to me and he said, "Coach, I'm not a good hitter." Mm-hmm. He said, "It won't bother me if you don't put me in the batting order." And I said, "Well, look, that's not my philosophy." I said, "I want you to be a hitter like everybody else, and if you're not the best, I want you to try to be the best." And he said, "Okay." Well, he ended up being my best hitter. He was a long ball hitter. We weren't just dinking and dunking it. He was driving the ball deep. Very unassuming young man. He's the kind of guy who you really enjoy rooting for, whether you're a South fan or not. But the defense looked very, very good. And this is a team that is going to have some good defense. You look at this schedule for South. It's kind of a hot-cold schedule. There's a couple of games in there that they maybe should win easy. But I'm going to tell you something. This is a tough schedule. West Jessamine, a playoff team. They'll play them on the road. They were a playoff team last year, and they'll challenge that defense because it's such a powerful running game. And then the second week, you got to play on the road at Collins, and all they are is the defending 4A class champions.
Yeah, South really jumps in the fire. You look at the second game, you go at Collins. Then the third game, you host Anderson County. I mean, those Collins, you have the defending 4A state champion. In Anderson County, you have perennial 5A. They're usually state quarterfinals, state semifinals.
Yeah, they got knocked out in the semis last year.
Right.
They made it all the way to the Final Four.
Right. So I mean, that's a really tough start out of the gate. West Jessamine, they should be able to take care of. But yeah, I mean, look at Collins, Anderson County. I mean, those are. If I think if you split those, honestly, that may not be too bad of a result.
Well, I tell you, and the tough part of the schedule for South Oldham is, first off, you got West Jessamine. Then you got Collins and Anderson, which are two ranked teams. Collins is preseason number 2 in Class 4A behind Fort Thomas Highlands. Then you got to play your two emotional rival games back-to-back. Oldham County on the road, North Oldham at home. And you've got to come through these games, two ranked teams, two emotional county opponents, and you've got to keep your brains in order because then you start district the following week.
It really is. It's an interesting schedule. I mean, there's a lot of teams, they'll have sort of a break in there. I mean, like, for instance, Oldham County kind of getting North Bullitt in the middle of the season, maybe a game to, kind of recharge the batteries a little bit almost. But, South Oldham, you go, obviously the first game of the season, your guys are going to be amped up, ready to go for that one. The two ranked games, the two county games, the district games, and that's your season. I mean, there is no let up in there. I mean, I think they don't even get a bye week until after district play, so it's really it's a killer schedule.
I guess there's good news, bad news on the bye week for South. The good news is it's late in the season when you've probably piled up a few nicks and scrapes, and that gives you a 2-week period to recover there with just the Bullitt Central game left. But you almost wonder if Jamie Reed could have his druthers, whether he might not want that bye week after North Oldham, because right after that, then you got Connor away, Grant County away, which is a district game, and then Cooper and Scott High at home. And again, this is as you said earlier, one of the tougher districts in 5A, maybe from top to bottom, just about as tough as they come.
Absolutely, and you look, looking at their schedule, they have Anderson at home and North at home, but other than that, they're on the road for every game until just about the end of the season. So, I mean, they're going to have to, to handle that adversity. Okay, school's out. Now we go, go to the cafeteria meal, then go, ride on a bus for an hour and a half to go play a game and stay focused doing that, and go out and win in a hostile environment. And that's that's a tough thing for a bunch of 15, 16, 17-year-olds to do. So, definitely a tough schedule, highlighted by a tough district.
Well, it's always been said that high school coaches are pretty much crazy. I mean, these are people who are trusting their jobs with a bunch of 14, 15, 16, 17, 18-year-old kids. But this is going to be, for the South Oldham fans, this is going to be a lot of fun, the schedule. Now, Pegasus Sports will be covering the Anderson game. That'll be the first South Oldham game that we will do this year. And, of course, then we're going to see South 3 weeks in a row, because we will broadcast the game against Oldham County, the game against North Oldham. And then we're going to take a break. We're not doing Connor this year, but we are going to travel on the road to Grant County. So if you can't make that trip up to Dry Ridge, which is a bit of a haul, Pegasus Sports will be there to provide all the live coverage.
It's a bit of a haul, but they have little roses there, so it's worth it.
This is true. They
Absolutely.
got a new press box, too.
Oh,
a
there
nice
we go.
new press box. And that may be an interesting game also. Grant County coaching staff is reformulating their offense. They're going to go wing T this year, so we're going to see a little different Grant County team. But again, it's a district game. You can never look past those district games. As you look at this season, Brad, for South Oldham, a lot's expected. I think in Crestwood, the expectations have been certainly raised with what Jamie has done in the last 4 years. The coaches are picking this team to do pretty well. What's your thoughts? This looks like a team that could have a very successful season.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, obviously, while it comes to staying healthy, but if the defensive line and offensive lines perform like we saw them the other night, then there's really, the sky's kind of the limit with this team and things they can do. Obviously, when you look at the playoffs, the second round has been their bugaboo the last couple of years, and each person I talked to after the game, they brought it up, getting out of the second round. But, of course, as Jamie said, they also have to get to the second round to worry about getting out of it. So it'll be, you'll have to take it one game at a time, but it could be an incredible season in Crestwood.
South Oldham coming off an 8-4 season, looking for another big year in Crestwood. Hey, before we take a break, I want to remind you that if you need to find out what the next game is on Pegasus Sports, and if you don't happen to have that Oldham era nearby, because it's going to be in there, it's also, our broadcast schedule is also in the Coffee News, and many thanks out to the good Coffee News folks. I'm sure you've seen them. the little one-page brown newspaper that it's in just about every restaurant in Oldham County. They're free. It's a lot of fun to read while you're sitting there eating your lunch or dinner, and you can see it'll show you every week the next Pegasus sports game in the Coffee News. And hey, if you have a business, this is a local paper that is a nice way to be part of the local community. So give them a call. Find out how you can be part of the Coffee News at 502-797-7828. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we'll talk about the Mustangs of North Oldham High School. This is the Wednesday Night Sports Show on the Pegasus Sports Network.
A proud sponsor of the Pegasus Sports Network is Mountjoy Chilton Medley Certified Public Accountants, the largest locally based accounting firm in Kentucky and southern Indiana, offering a full range of accounting, audit, tax planning, and advisory services for businesses and individuals. Employing nearly 120 CPAs, Mountjoy Chilton Medley provides highly specialized services that can help you achieve your personal and business goals. For a complete list of services and more, on the web at mcpa.com. Mountjoy Chilton and Medley, 502-749-1900.
Back to the final segment of the Pegasus Sports Network Wednesday Night Sports Show. Mike Montgomery, along with Brad Stevens of the Oldham era. And before we go any further here with our final segment, we're going to talk about North Oldham High School. Want to announce our contest to name the show. We're not really sure that Wednesday Night Sports Show is the most dramatic, exciting, phenomenal name in the world.
Sure about that?
Well, I thought at least 2 minutes when I was making it up.
Right.
But we thought we'd have a little contest and see what you think. If you can come up with some other number. Now, we don't have a prototype to show you, but we're going to put together a Pegasus Sports T-shirt for the winner of our contest. I know, it's big prizes. Big prizes. Only the biggest here for you. And what we're going to do is invite you to drop us an email at mrmontgomery@twc.com. Drop me a line. Let me know what you'd like to call the show. We're going to probably run this for a couple of weeks here, or at least until we get three nominees.
Right.
We'll go until we get some proposals here. Judges' decisions are final, but we'll have a neat Pegasus Sports T-shirt for somebody. Again, mrmontgomery@twc.com. Send us your suggestion. You may be naming the show, and it has to be better than the Wednesday Night Sports Show. But maybe that isn't all that bad.
I mean, Wednesday nights. It's four words. Could be a lot. It feels like it's more though. It feels pretty mouthy.
Feels
pretty
mouthy. Yeah.
We need something a little bit catchy or something that snaps, to really get us going.
North Oldham High School, the Mustangs, coached by Billy Martin. Let's talk about the Mustangs. Billy Martin in his 9th year with the program. It's really kind of hard. I remember when he became the coach at North Oldham, and it just doesn't seem like that many years ago. But he's now the dean of coaches here in Oldham County. And, if you take that first year, that first 0-10 record off his record, he's 55-29 since.
Yeah.
Pretty impressive.
Very, very impressive, especially over the last couple of years. I mean, you talk about them, only losing 3 or 4 games a year. He's really built a program that it wasn't really a much before he got there, and has built it into one of the better programs in the area, especially on the 4A level.
Yeah, if you don't remember the 2003, 2004, 2005 seasons, those first 3 years at North, just a combined 7 wins. You had a couple of different coaches. Won a playoff appearance, and they lost that one. So it was a rough start for North Oldham. And then that 4th season didn't get much better. They went 0-10, actually the worst record in school history. But since then, you look at it, and Billy Martin in the last 7 years, 6 winning seasons. They've been to the region finals twice, including last year when they went 9-4, and 2 of those 4 losses were to eventual state champion Collins.
Yeah, you talk about bad luck of being in that district. I mean, dealing with Collins, I think lost 6 Division I signees. I'm pretty sure 6. Yeah, a couple of those guys, Ferris and Messiah White, the linebacker, going to Western Kentucky. So I mean, they had some they had some big guys in that team, some quality guys, and North had a really good team. But yeah, they just kind of ran up against a buzzsaw, and they played them in the regular season and lost big at Collins, and played them in the playoffs, and the same thing happened. I know they'll be happy to get them at home this year during that matchup.
Yeah, and it was kind of an unusual year last year. When you think back to that first game, there were some guys who were not able to play for North in the first game, some starters, some key starters, and they had that insane game against Evansville
Yes.
Central, 66-50. Evansville Central coming into town for the win. And guess what, folks? They're back. Evansville Central is back again for the first game of the year.
I think they had so much fun last time. They're coming back. It was an entertaining game. That was the first football game I covered for the newspaper, and so throwing me like that, then I don't know if I'll have to get some bionic fingers or something to type all those stats up, because that was something. 66-50, and I don't even want to think about how many rushing yards were in the game. I think it was something like 800 combined between the teams. I mean, it was a crazy game, and to score 50 points and lose by 16, that's something wild happened.
Well, North Oldham with a nice year last year. Obviously, one of the big reasons why they had such a great year was one of the most efficient offenses I saw in 4A football last year. North Oldham under Billy Martin has run the Delaware wing T formation, 2 wings, a fullback. And one of those wings last year had just a tremendous year. Arian Beasley, over 1,400 yards. And when you talk speed, we talked about Star Thompson of South, and he's tremendously fast. But Beasley, 4.3640. That's Division I speed.
Yeah, he's wherever he ends up playing college ball, he'll be a steal for someone, especially in the return game, or kind of playing that wing position, getting down the edges. I mean, he was such a weapon last year for North. He was a leading receiver, he was a leading rusher by a pretty healthy amount, and I think his yards per carry average, maybe you're wrong, but it was somewhere 9 yards per carry, 10 yards per carry, something like that. I mean, every time he touched the ball, there was always a threat he was going to take it to the house, and he did that on several occasions. He's a big reason why North had a great season last year.
North doesn't try to surprise you. Now, Billy might disagree with me a little bit. It's not that North doesn't pull surprises. It's not that they don't have a trick play every now and then. But North Oldham comes up, and I call it honest football. If you've scouted one North Oldham game, you've seen what they're going to do offensively. But what they do is they do it better than anybody else. They do it efficiently. Everybody makes their assignments. And the bottom line is they offensively, they just outblock you, they outrun you, and they get a lot of yards and they get a lot of points. And this year, this team's going to bring a lot of the backfield back from last year. Beasley, of course, a full-time starter. The other wing, Chris Webb, was a part-time starter. The fullback, Kevin Graham, was a part-time starter. And at quarterback, Taylor Heckenberg, who was a part-time starter. Now, it sounded like I said a lot of part-time,
Right.
but keep in mind, with North Oldham, all of the guys I just mentioned got a lot of time.
They did. You look at Taylor Heckenberg at quarterback, he split reps with Keenan Dowd, but he was still, I think he got probably 60-40 or so in his favor. Kevin Graham, he was one of their best goal line runners, and Chris Webb busted off a couple big runs. He didn't get very many chances because they had some other running backs there, but when he did, he took advantage, and obviously we could go on for days talking about Arian and things he did last year, and I'm sure he'll want to repeat that this year.
Well, Arian Beasley, like I said, just a tremendous athlete last year for him. Gave him a lot of things. Now, Kevin Graham, as we look at the offense here, is probably going to go a little both ways. I expect him to play some linebacker, but he's an excellent fullback. When he was in the lineup, he was very productive at the fullback spot.
He was one of the keys, like we talked about South earlier. When you have that 3 running back system, you got to have one of those guys that's good in short yardage situations. And Kevin last year, a lot of times they get in a 3rd and 2 or 4th and 1, or they get down the goal line, and he was the guy they went to on a lot of those occasions, and usually pretty successfully. A powerful guy, can get kind of a good push going behind the line, and can push the line forward a little bit. He'll be the guy they turn to in a lot of those goal line, short yardage situations, and a guy they have a lot of confidence in.
Chris Webb rounds out that backfield, the other wing back position. Did probably not get as many accolades as he deserved last year. Obviously, when you're in the backfield with Arian Beasley,
Right.
you tend to get overshadowed. But one thing about Billy Martin, and he has been very religious about this throughout the years, with those three backs, the fullback and the two wings, he has pretty much split the carries down the middle. It's frankly kind of amazing that North has had runners with over 1,000 yards, because generally you'll have both wings and the fullback get about 10 to 12 carries a game.
Well, one of the guys that we haven't mentioned yet, but we'll get some of those carries, is Chris Burton. He's a star on the basketball team, and he's decided to come out for football again this, for his senior year. He had a lot of friends that were playing, wanted to come do it. And Billy's already said, putting him at wing, kind of intermediate, working in, probably with Chris Webb, I guess. I'm sure Arian will take most of the reps at one of the wing spots, but, working in Chris Burton a little bit, he'll get his reps, and that's just another body there, another athletic body that, that Billy can use to get some production.
Offensively, this is the big change this year, and you'll notice it up front immediately. This is a much smaller offensive line than in the past. Now, for North Oldham, I don't know that this is all that terrible, because the Mustangs run the wing tee. Wing tee, depending upon who you talk to, it's either smoke and mirrors or angles. To a technician, the wing tee is all about creating angles. It equalizes the playing field, evens the playing field for a smaller team like North Oldham, and run well. This is a kind of an offense where speed on the line can be just as important as size.
When I was out there last week, I got a chance to talk to Nicky and Jimmy, who's the left guard for the Mustangs, and he had a really good quote. Saying that we don't have a lot of guys that are 270 pounds up front, but what we do have are guys that are well disciplined, that are maybe not fast, but they're quick. They take good steps. They're disciplined. They know what they're doing. Experience with the offense, and when you're running that kind of option, sort of wing, not option, but sort of wing tee, inside handoffs, outside handoffs type deal, that's what you want, are guys that know what steps to take. And what a lot of that offense is, angles, or smoke and mirrors, whatever you want to call it. I mean, to have linemen that can get to that block quick, rather than just big guys who maybe are a little bit slower. That makes the world of difference.
And Billy says that this year we may see a little more jet action as opposed to the sweeps. Because of that, and you could see that again with this team being very quick. It's struggled a little bit against Franklin County on Friday night in the scrimmage, but sometimes you wonder, was that North Oldham, or was it just because Franklin County is going to be so good?
Yeah, and that could have a lot to do with it. I know that the word I used to, or the word that Billy used when I talked to him, was sloppy. But I mean, sloppy by North standards, maybe decent by someone else's. I mean, they take a lot of pride in being disciplined, doing things the correct way as far as technique and kind of the X's and O's go. So I wouldn't anticipate that sloppiness to last for very long this season.
Well, North Oldham comes into the season with a lot of high expectations. Pick number 2 in the district. The defense is challenged in this district. This is maybe not a top to bottom top tier district, but at the top it's pretty impressive. Obviously Collins, but also Spencer County, a tremendous running team, is going to put some pressure on this defense. So let's talk about the defense. Billy doesn't make a whole lot of changes from year to year. It's going to be kind of the same look we've seen for the last few years, just some different faces.
Yeah, absolutely. You'll have, one thing you see with Northwide guys going both ways, and you'll see guys like Arian Beasley, playing a little bit of cornerback. You'll see Ryan Jones, who's left tackle, also be middle linebacker. You'll see some of those guys that are, that can play both sides of the ball, and that's something you talk about when you have a smaller team. Maybe they're not as big, but they might be better conditioned, and they might be able to go both ways like that. So, you'll see some familiar faces over there. Guys like Tyler Greener, I think he'll play in some defensive line. Colin Portman will be a big guy on that defensive line for him. So maybe some different faces, but the same defense, and hopefully they'll get the same results from it.
Michael Marquez will be big up front
absolutely.
there. I think he's going to be a major factor. This is a different defensive formation than Oldham and South run. It's a 3-5 line. line up. Your 3 down linemen, 5 linebackers. Those 3 guys up front, it's all about being strong and just kind of controlling space, not really making tackles. That's the linebacker's job.
Right, yeah. When you play any kind of 3 down set, you want those guys. You're probably not going to have your speed rushers or something there. You're going to have more the bigger guys whose job it is to hold up 2 or 3 linemen at a time and open space for the linebackers to come make plays. And that'll be the job of those guys. And it's a really important job, because if those guys aren't doing that, then you only have 3 guys up there. If they're not getting much of a push, then you're at a disadvantage. So we'll see how those guys do. I'm sure that it's worked in the past, and I'm sure they're confident it'll work again this year.
Yeah, guys, we're probably going to be mentioning a lot. John Rettenauer, he's going to be running the bandit spot for North. Wes Johnson, the leading returning tackler for North Oldham, will be playing one of those linebacker spots. Adam Osborne, Ryan Jones, these are guys you're going to see a lot at the linebacker spot, and you figure we're going to be calling their names quite a bit, because they're the guys who are going to be making the tackles in this scheme. Now, one thing about this defensive backfield, it looks suspiciously like the offensive backfield.
Right. Yeah, like we said, a lot of faces. You'll see Chris Webb, Bryce Webb, Taylor Heckenberg will maybe get some reps back there. It's when you're a 4A school, you don't have a lot of the resources that not so much from I guess kind of a numbers perspective. You don't have 90-man rosters like some of your bigger 6A schools are. So those faster guys, they have to do a lot of different things. So you'll see some of North's best athletes will not only be called upon to catch the ball, but to get there, play safety, play cornerback, and make some big plays back there.
Some interesting tidbits. Amaze your friends with these little trivia things. North with quite a lot of seniors on this team. 20 seniors are on. I'm sorry, they lost one the other day. It's 19 now, but still a pretty sizable senior class. Strangely enough, and this is just one of those statistical blips, the school has a very small junior class, and as a result, there's only 10 juniors on this roster. Now, interestingly enough, it's a pretty good crop of juniors. There are only 10 of them, but 7 of them figure to start on this football team. Now, one other player who we don't always pay a whole lot of attention to him. Now, last year at Oldham County, we paid a lot of attention to the kicker because he wound up kicking at Ohio State. This year, maybe the kicker in the county to be watching is going to be playing for North Oldham, a young man who maybe has a Division I leg.
Yeah, Brandon Peggy's his name. Really, like you were saying, a Division I leg. I think he's been a guy that's been trying to get out, much like Sean did, where he tried to go out to lots of camps, try to get noticed. I think Brandon's been doing the same thing, really being active and trying to get recruited. And I think they're pretty confident in what they got. I mean, he showed his leg and, hit a couple of long field goals last year. It was good on PATs, which when he scores many touchdowns, North does, that's an important thing. And honestly, a lot of high school teams, that's not something you take for granted. So Brandon will be a weapon for them. Kickoffs. I mean, he's a guy that can make another team start at the 20 as opposed to giving up a return. So he'll as far as kickers in the county go, I'd say that's probably the guy to look out for this season.
Yeah, we had a lot of fun watching Oldham County's kicker last year. It's going to be a lot of fun watching Brandon this year because he does have a strong leg and probably is going to be getting some looks from some colleges. Look, we're going to wrap things up here, but before we do, want to find out some other things that are going on. Brad, how about the Oldham era? What do you got? You guys got some new things going on.
Yeah, we do. Actually launched this past week across all newspapers that are owned by our parent company, Landmark International, or Landmark Incorporated, excuse me. Mobile apps. I know a lot of people obviously, read the newspaper, not just in the print edition, they want to read it online, and reading on their phone especially be a great tool. You can see on your screen.
You see it right there.
And it's a really well-functioning app. You can get there in your sports section, opinion, obits, if you want to get into contact. I mean, it's really, I sat down and played with it for about 15 minutes the other day. Really functional, really good tool, and especially if you're at a game or something like that, if you want to check something quick, instead of loading our mobile website and, maybe that takes a little bit longer, you just pull up the app and you're right there.
Also want to show you what the Pegasus website looks like for those of you who may just now be becoming aware of the Pegasus Sports Network. Nope, that's not it.
Another free advertisement.
Another
there.
free advertisement for there we
you
go.
All right.
Pegasus Sports Network. To get to this site, just go to www.pegasussportsky.com. That's www.pegasussportsky.com. Now, when you get to this site here, it's as easy as pie to get to the ball game. All you have to do is click on one of those 3 school logos, and it will take you to the broadcast site. Now, all of the Pegasus games will be broadcast live on this site. If you miss the live game, maybe you want to go to the game and you just don't want to fiddle with any earphones or anything like that, you can always watch it later. It's archived indefinitely on the website. You just go to the website just like you did, click on one of those logos, and then find the icon of the game that you want to listen to. Also, for the first time, we are going to be on Channel 25, digital Channel 25 on cable on a delayed basis. So the games, football games, will be on a Friday night. On Saturday at 7 o'clock on Channel 25, it'll be on Oldham County Cable Digital 25. And then Sunday through Friday, nightly, it'll be shown at 10 o'clock. So for a week after the game, you can always watch it on cable as well. And we're glad to announce that partnership with the county government. And certainly looking forward for everybody getting a chance to see the ball games. And, of course, come on out to the ball games. You know, you don't need a computer. Smartphones work just fine. Last year had to miss a game, and I listened to the other announcers who filled in that night all the way down to Knoxville on this smartphone. Just set it on the seat next to me and listen. So nowadays there's just so many ways to keep track of the Pegasus Sports Network, and you don't have to worry about whether the radio station signal reaches you because there's wireless everywhere pretty much. That'll about wrap things up here. For my partner, Brad Stevens, I'm Mike Montgomery. Tune in next week, same time, 7 o'clock, for the Wednesday night sports show right here on the Pegasus Sports Network.